Most people think that leadership starts in government buildings or in boardrooms. But I'm here to tell you that it really happens in community and in small organizations and through people many of us are not reading about every day. Today on the Friday Reporter podcast, I am joined by Judy Lloyd, who is going to talk to us about leadership and influence and the people who quietly change communities. Judy, you have a great background in government and in service, and you are about to launch a remarkable podcast. And by the time this conversation airs, Purple Inspiration will be out in the world. I want you to tell me a little bit about the impetus for that project and what it is you're hoping to accomplish through those conversations.
Well, thank you so much for that question. I'm excited about Purple Inspiration's launch this week. I decided to do this because I talked to a number of young women in my community, and they're all givers. They're people who give of their time, their talent. And I was encouraging some of them to consider a career in public service, whether appointed office or running for election. And I basically got pretty hard no's from all of them because they said, why do I want to be involved in politics? Everybody's negative. If I go out on a limb to the right, then I'm going to get attacked on the left and vice versa. So I know that when I had my first presidential appointment, which was at 25, there was no social media. There was no Facebook. There was no Twitter. There was no Instagram. No LinkedIn, none of them. And so we didn't have the same scrutiny back then as you do now. You put yourself out there now, and we all do it every day. And you never know what's going to come back. And so I decided to start Purple Inspiration because my feeling was if I could showcase leaders that are making a consequential difference in communities and across the country, that is exactly what I think it's going to take to encourage young women to actually consider public service and community service more seriously.
It's so often that women work and empower other women. Why did you specifically decide to identify this as an opportunity to lift others up?
Well, I've always done that. I have been a mentor. I've enjoyed having some incredible mentors. I mean, one of my mentors I was actually texting with yesterday is Lydia Beebe. She was the corporate secretary at Chevron Corporation. And she took me under her wing and we became friends. And here we are texting about, both TCU, who's my team, Go Frogs, and KU, who's her team, both lost in the college NCAA finals. But it's one of those things that you relate to women in so many different ways. Sometimes it's very serious as a mentorship, and sometimes it's just fun. And I just enjoy helping and bringing up young women who want to be entrepreneurs or want to be civic leaders.
You've worked around government and business and community leadership for a long time. So you've seen how decisions get made. Talk to me about what it is that people misunderstand about how decisions get made in government and organizations.
Boy, what do people misunderstand? I think it depends on the situation. I've seen, politics gone awry in a small town, which has a huge impact on a lot of people in one place. And I've seen politics, kind of percolate and go along and have a positive impact in the nation's capital. So, I think people want to trust, but they have so much trouble trusting their government now because our government leaders have a tendency to just go for sound bites. And, it makes me crazy, actually. I'm like, just tell the truth of what this bill or this activity will do to make their life better.
Well, you come to this very honestly because your background is incredibly steeped. You talked about your political appointment as early as 25. Take us back a little bit. Talk a little bit about your own background. It's incredibly impressive, and it's what really got you and I together today to talk on this show.
Well, you're sweet to say that. I grew up in Cortland, New York, small town in upstate New York, in the snow belt. And I never dreamed that I would actually have a career in politics and government. In fact, I didn't even want a career in politics and government. But I graduated when there was a recession and just decided, okay, I've got to find a job and, no matter what it is, and ended up being an office manager on a state Senate campaign. And that launched me into public service. So, I had the opportunity to travel with my congressman who had just been elected to Washington, D.C. That's how I got my start. And 25, I was appointed to the Congressional Affairs Office at the USDA. So, I grew up near cows every single day and loved actually working with the farmers. It was just a really wonderful thing. And then, fast forward to my second presidential appointment was with George W. Bush. And that was at the Labor Department, where I was the first woman to hold the Western labor job. It was really interesting. They didn't know what to do with me because they'd never had a woman with small children who had that role. And they basically said to me, well, everyone here has kids that have graduated college. We don't have to worry about kids. So I immediately went to work with how do we try to get some workplace flexibility in place for our workforce, and how do we encourage that? That's what our administration was all about. We see now with, careers in technology, especially for women, you need to have that flexibility. You need to be able to work, whether it's remotely or on your own hours. I mean, my philosophy was I'm not going to miss my kid's baseball game, and that's that.
I love that. And I wonder if in your time as you were doing that, you were a bit of a pioneer. I know my own story is a little bit like that too. I'm curious, was there a mentor? Was there someone that influenced you in that space? Someone you watched do it well? Someone that you can identify? Or did you really feel like you were out there on your own, sort of writing the script as it should be?
Well, I could tell you a story that goes back before that political appointment. I worked for Senator Bob Dole, and I got to know Elizabeth Dole, and I got to know Susan Molinari, who was a New York congresswoman at the time. And they kept talking about the glass ceiling because Mrs. Dole was the first cabinet member to be appointed as the labor secretary. And the first Asian woman as the labor secretary was Elaine Chao, who I had a chance to work with. So I would say those are two of my mentors for sure, who were really interested in how do we just give women more opportunities, whether it's starting your own business. We want people to not be afraid to do those things. We want them to be encouraged, and we want to give them the tools. And so I would say if I had to name two mentors, definitely those two would be in the category.
I mean, they were out there really showing us the way that women can lead. Was there something in particular that that you took away from those moments that you feel like has helped set you forward, set you on this course now in building your own show, having your own business? What kinds of things stand out are there any remarkable moments that stand out for you?
Gosh, so many remarkable moments. I actually learned about public speaking when I was at the Labor Department. And, they were very, very good. Miss Elaine was very good about teaching us. She wanted us to be the very best ambassadors that we could for the department. So I would say those moments of learning having the tools and being able to go out on our own and feel confident. That's the key thing. We felt confident, not just about message, but about how to say it, because we learned how to say it, which was really, quite earth shattering to me. Most people don't think about, you go up on stage and you don't think about, what people think, but you can command a stage if you are yourself. And if you could be authentic in delivering a message that you're genuinely enthusiastic about. And I was.
And now the show, Purple Inspiration, will do the same for so many other women. They'll be able to lean in and understand what it is you're offering as it relates to confidence, stepping forward in this project. Talk to me about, because I know the background, but I'd like you to tell me the story about why purple. Why that was, I know there's probably a couple of reasons why, but I'm curious about how you came to pick that name.
Well, actually, I started out noticing the color purple on the altar. I'm a devout Catholic, and we're in Lent now, so I see purple again. It makes me smile every single time. And I was part of my marching band at Cortland High School, the Purple Tigers. We had the most awful uniforms you could imagine, but they did have purple on them, and so that was our mascot, the Purple Tiger. Fast forward to an unfortunate situation. My mom passed away from pancreatic cancer, which I want to just give a shout out to pancan.org. That's Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, for the great work that they're doing to try to develop cures and early detection tools. Horrible disease, but their cancer color is purple. So there we were again. And then my most recent, I would say, prior to Purple Inspiration, my son went to TCU, which is the purple horned frog, and they're awesome little creatures. If you've never seen one, you should try to see one. And it's just kind of a color that's passed through my life in many, many different ways. And if you take red and green, look at the flag behind me. If you take our flag, red and blue, what color do you get? You get purple. And I'm a true believer. I work both sides of the aisle. I'm a true believer in coming together to solve problems rather than yelling at each other. So that's really the impetus.
I mean, there are so many different, it clearly was, there was no question that was going to be the color and the name that you would pull together for that. I want to come back to your mom because I think that's a really special and important moment. I have a similar story myself. But before I do that, I want to talk for a minute about, because you talk about public speaking, you talk about the leadership you're offering in your community amongst the people that you mentor and offer advice to. You also run a wonderful agency called Altamount Strategies. Tell me a little bit about what your strategy firm does specifically.
Okay. So Altamount Strategies is my company. It's actually now Altamount Communication Strategies. We added that word. And we communicate on messaging. We will do messaging campaigns for leaders and for candidates for office. I've also done fundraising for candidates, which has been an interesting thing. So I try to build the coalition from top to bottom, really. I did a major land use project here called McGee Preserve. That was a huge campaign in my community, ended up going to referendum. And our offering was 69 homes and 380 acres of open space, which is beautiful farmland in the Danville and the San Ramon Valley area. So something I'm really, really proud of. We work with a lot of environmental groups and our developer, and really brought together a wonderful coalition of people to help us. So those are the types of things I do. I try to build communities and try to build campaigns that make communities better and more prosperous.
Judy, how important are relationships in leadership and policy work?
Oh my gosh, you can't even put a number on the importance of relationships. In my mind, in politics, you have some relationships that work and some that don't. And my belief is if you could surround yourself with the right people and good people who care about you succeeding and you care about lifting them up and succeeding, that could be, your most important thing that you can do in your life is make someone else's life better and have a fruitful life yourself.
Is there advice that you give to someone who wants to get involved in public service or community leadership?
Yes. And especially for women, have a mentor or have more than one mentor. People, you really need to bounce ideas, and you really need to talk about strategies with people who've been there. And you'll find that most people who have served the public, whether they're elected office or whether they're appointed office, want to help women succeed, want to help that next generation. I'm certainly one of them. I'm worried that women may not take a career in politics because of what we've talked about social media and feeling pigeonholed. And, the one thing that I want to say to women is, take your own chance to fly, take your own chance to be who you want to be. And, trumpet your cause, because people really do care and they want to see good leadership.
You've had a long and really successful career. I'm wondering, you said at the start that it wasn't necessarily the path that you'd expected for yourself, but what would you say, were there specific, in every, let me go back, in every moment in between the different administrations and the changes, because you've had all these great opportunities, there's always a moment where that opportunity itself goes away, whether the person you're serving leaves office, or you yourself decide to make a change. Maybe your family changes, your life circumstances change. Were there any moments looking back that really stand out as big transition moments for you?
Well, several, and they mostly had to do with presidential campaigns.
Uh-huh.
I was actually doing the math last night in my head, and I think I've got 50%.
Mm.
So, 50% of the candidates have won and 50% of the candidates have lost. And you really mourn the losses deeply inside if you work on a presidential campaign.
Mhm.
And you celebrate the wins emphatically with enthusiasm. And so I guess for me, there's been several moments, and it's how you recover if you have a loss. How do you pivot? And I know the most overused word during the pandemic was pivot. But that's really true, which is why when we got to the pandemic, I felt like I was better equipped to deal with it than a lot of other people because I'd had to do it. My father-in-law once told me, my father-in-law's an inventor, a medical device inventor, and he once told me he thought, in spite of the fact that he had to go get investors for all of his products and he's been very successful, he thought being in politics was the most high stress that you could possibly have. He's like, I don't
Mm,
understand why you do that. Well, you do that because you want to serve, because you want to make
mm.
people's lives better.
No
And
doubt.
he
And
did
don't
through
and
his
wouldn't
devices, but it was very different than my career choices.
Absolutely. But wouldn't you say, and I would say he probably would agree, wouldn't you say you learn more in the losses than you do in the wins?
Absolutely. The losses cause you, and I guess I'd say it this way, the losses cause you to step back and evaluate yourself and evaluate your worth and evaluate your relationships and decide what pathway do you want to take next and who will help you to along your way. I have never been, you're never happy if you have a loss, but you also learn the most about yourself and you learn the most about what you're good at and what people are looking for. I've pivoted. Honestly, I mean, did I ever see myself raising money? Not really. It wasn't a skill set. I wasn't in finance at any of the campaign committees, but my own campaign for state assembly, I raised $500,000. That's a lot of money. And, you just kind of prove to yourself that you can do it and you can take a chance. And even if you lose, you learn more and you pivot and you relaunch. So that's my mantra for everybody.
Tell me a little bit about that. It must be different to be a candidate than it is to work on a campaign.
So I did, one of my guests on my podcast was my county supervisor. Her name's Candace Anderson. She's a very lovely woman who's been just an amazing public servant in my region. And before she was elected, she was appointed in 2 different cities. And she said, I always tell people getting appointed is a lot easier than getting elected. And that no truer words have ever been spoken. It is very difficult for women to run for elected office for all the reasons that I told you. I mean, I had people who would comment on my looks. I had people who would comment on my, what I was wearing. And, there's even then there were trolls that, would be out there that want to take you off your game. And the most important thing you can do is be confident in yourself and not let that distract you. I let it distract me at one point and I finally got to the point where my political consultant said, you know what? You need to take a couple days off. Just go away from this and then come back. And it turned out it was best advice I could get.
It's really difficult now. I mean, thinking about when you and I got started to today, the entry, as you mentioned, about social media and online and all of the noise, it's really made it even more difficult for people to want good quality candidates to want to run because you open yourself up to so much vulnerability. Um, what would you say, other than finding your authenticity or identifying ways to find that leadership, was there anything you learned that maybe you could pass along today in our conversation to someone who's thinking about it, but saying, "Ooh, I'd rather not because I don't want to be exposed"?
There's a lot of questions you have to ask yourself before you enter a race that are really important. One of them is your own financial house in order? Can you afford the time away from your business or away from your job? Because you are literally going to have to raise money almost every day. And that takes time. And that takes a lot of cold calling and a lot of meetings. So my advice would be really do an evaluation. Do the evaluation of where are you in your life? How old are your children, for example? Is your spouse supportive? I mean, I've seen instances with, spouses who are husbands and spouses who are wives who are not really that enthusiastic about their loved one running for office, and got to work through that or decide it's not for you. It's okay to say no, but it's also okay to say yes. You have to have the right circumstance and really be sure of what you're getting into, and have the right mentors, because having the right mentors will help you succeed.
I totally agree with that. What would you say keeps you motivated to keep doing this work?
Service, whether it's been service to our country, service to community. And I should, give a shout out to my one of my mentors who's male. I had the opportunity to get to know Senator Bob Dole really, really well. And he had, as many people know, he was injured in the war. He had a disability. Every day he was motivated to help people. He told his daughter, every day I want to make the difference in one person's life. And I really took that to heart. And that's something that I try to do every day. Who can I impact today? Some days it's a family member. Some days it's a young businesswoman, an entrepreneur. Some day it's just somebody on the street who I have a chance meeting with. But I think you have to have the ability to be compassionate, and to be a thoughtful leader. And I just, I can't say enough again about having the right mentors and really thinking through your strategy, being a smart thinker. We should probably spend about 50 to 80% of our time thinking rather than just doing.
Oh, that's
That's
so true.
that's my brand new
That's so
mantra
true.
that I started on, because I've been one of those tactical people for my whole life. Just execute, execute, execute. Well, after a while, you have to step back and say, wait a minute, I want to think about my own strategy and my own strengths, and how can I parlay that into my next thing.
It's so interesting. Over the course of the last couple of days, as I got to know you and your work, you have also really spoken up about how much you're committed to continuing to grow and advance and lean into your career, even though you yourself are of a certain age that perhaps retirement could be something you might consider. Tell me a little bit about that decision for you.
Well, first off, California is expensive.
Well,
And if you
that's good
want to
motivation.
have a wonderful life in California, you have to work, work hard. I happen to be married to an entrepreneur who has a fascinating company called Safe and Home. His company does remote support for adults with developmental disabilities, and it's a great company. I absolutely love it. But we have to be a dual income household, and so I think for me, the strategy is, what can I do? What do I want to do that I can help other people and make money from and really thrive and be happy? And, that's why I talked, a little bit before about, you kind of lean in and you kind of say, hey, I want to go do this and see if people are interested and see if people want this kind of service. And what I found is, there's more people that need help on media, on coaching, anything, like I said about female entrepreneurs, that type of thing. I actually started a business program at my local chamber when I was CEO that trained young women entrepreneurs. And I was really proud of that. And so, that's kind of always been me. What's the next great thing that I can do that's going to help people lift themselves?
It's so important, and it's so much in the forefront of everything we do today. We talk about the disadvantage of social media, but also there is a value in the ability to be online, because you can make yourself and your services so much more visible to those that might need it. You talked about how Elaine Chow had been smart about empowering her team to
Mhm.
understand the importance of public speaking. That's so much of what we do today, isn't it, Judy? There's so much of that
Absolutely.
people need. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think, we need leaders. I always say to people, everybody can be a leader, but some people are followers, and that's okay. Because followers can latch onto the right leaders, whether it's in your company or, someone that you admire. That's another thing I bring up. You would be surprised, most people would be surprised how many people that they think are not accessible that are in government. You'd be surprised, especially if it's a young woman and you approach another woman and say, I want to learn from you. I want to understand what you do and potentially, run for office or be a part of what you're building. That most of the time, most women will actually want to help and want to lift up and want to mentor. I think that's just really, really important right now.
I totally agree. I totally agree. What would you say if you had to pick one word for leadership, other than leadership? What stands out for you? What are you looking for in a leader? Whether it's a political leader or a community leader or someone in your church, what stands out for you?
Authenticity. You've got to be honest with yourself, who you are. And I gravitate towards leaders that I know are not trying to spin me, are not getting all their answers off AI. Women who really can tell a story in a way that helps them to succeed. And you could tell in a minute people who are not authentic. I can anyways. And I gravitate towards
You
those that they look like honest brokers.
you made a comment on something that I shared not that long ago about having a story about Speaker Pelosi, something about being extra prepared. What was that story?
Oh, this was a great one. I wanted to say with a caveat, this was before we went back and had the speaker training in Washington, D.C. that Secretary Chao sponsored. I was sent to a Job Corps center. Now, Job Corps is a fabulous program that the Labor Department runs, and it's largely, for career tech, and it's largely in areas where they bring in underserved populations. And our Job Corps was having a fabulous opening ceremony in San Francisco. So I went there and I had all of my stats about, what the Bush administration had done for Job Corps. And Nancy Pelosi was there. And I went before her. Naturally, she was ranked higher. She was not yet speaker at that time. And I remember getting up there and I had my notebook all out there and I had my stats and I'm turning the pages and I kind of got that sort of polite applause. And then she stood up there and just told a story about someone who had been impacted by Job Corps, someone who she knew personally, and their career had soared. And I thought right at that moment, boy, it doesn't do any good to have facts and figures if you can't just recite it off the top of your head. You look like you're trying to convince people of something versus telling them a story they're going to remember.
And it reminds me too, yes to stories, yes to authenticity, and yes to Italian girls with great stories, which brings me back to your mom and dad, who I just read a great piece that you did about your Sicilian background and how your family has just a beautiful Italian story. I also have a great family immigrant story. I love that so much. And I love that so much of that is part of your foundation.
Absolutely.
Is there a favorite Judy Lloyd? Is there a favorite Judy Lloyd recipe, a must-have? It's your comfort, favorite Italian food. What do you love the most?
Well, I love, and I should mention, I've got to just give a little shout out. I am full Italian and Sicilian, so half and half. I come from Biviano, Pietragrossi, Cifinelli, and Natoli. And some of that family's from Liberi, which is in the Aeolian Islands off Sicily, and some of that family's from Castelfort, which is near Monte Cassino, if you know where that is in Italy. My recipe, absolute diehard recipe to die for, is my mom's Italian meatballs. She made them by hand, and in fact, she taught my son when she was dying of pancreatic cancer on New Year's Eve. She taught my son how to make the meatballs. And
I love it.
boy, is he a stickler for sticking to her recipe. he didn't want to
Well,
deviate a bit. And he's
smart.
actually been in cook-offs in college where he made her meatballs, and so that's kind of our thing. We celebrate her and my dad every Christmas Eve, where we actually have a meat sauce that includes the meatballs and different things that she had. So that's
I
my
love it.
all-time favorite.
My dad is still with us. My mom has since passed. My father's family is from Tarazi, which is not far from Naples.
Mm-hmm.
And he also has a dynamite meatball that he makes still to this day. And in a previous conversation, David Castanetti told me he makes the best meatballs. So I feel like us Italian kids are going to have to get together and have a Friday Reporter meatball competition.
I think that sounds like a fabulous idea.
I love it so much. Judy, we could talk for another hour or two or more. I am just thrilled for you. I'm excited about Purple Inspiration. I can't wait to celebrate you this week and share it with my friends and colleagues that pay attention to Friday Reporter. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Oh, it's an honor to be with you. I'm so glad that we've connected, and look forward to more collaborations in the future.
I do too. Thank you, my friend.
All right.
Thanks for joining me. That was super fun. I'm looking forward to a really busy and exciting 2026. Big thanks to my production team at Two River Pictures. And another really important thanks to my friends at Be the Brand Collective who helped me with marketing and making sure the word gets out about the show. I'll see you again for another episode. Thanks so much.